A mistake can happen quick. Thankfully, there's people looking out for us.
It's sort of like CES, but for traffic safety. But unlike CES, there's actually real innovation here and not just, AI chatbots.
You've probably never heard of Traffic Expo. I hadn't either.
It's a conference focused on making roads safer, especially in work zones.
Hundreds of people die in construction zones every year, either on the job or behind the wheel.
This year, the conference is here in Houston. It's hosted by the American Traffic Safety Services Association. For decades, automakers have been working to make cars crash more safely and keep people alive. They represent a bunch of companies who are inventing products to make roads crash a little more safely and keep people alive, if that makes sense.
Today I'm checking out a half dozen or so inventions that are out on the road saving lives, or at least hope to be really soon.
That's the simplicity of shooting a LiDAR beam down up to 1,000 yards. So picture about 3 football fields.
It looks just like a box, but it's designed to keep construction workers alive if a car drives into the construction zone.
On a smaller city street, it's probably not such a big deal.
Slower city speeds give a construction worker a chance to run away.
But out on a freeway, somebody blowing through these cones could be life or death.
Vehicles hit and kill somewhere between 50 and 150 highway workers every year in this country, which affected this company's founder.
Former DOT employee and had a friend that died who was a construction worker.
He wanted to create an early warning alarm to give workers a fighting chance.
Because if you can catch that at about 300 yards at 70 miles per hour, that gives 3 seconds, which might not seem like a lot, but is enough time for a construction worker to look up, understand if they need to jump out of the way.
And with distracted drivers,
I'm texting while driving.
it's also enough warning to get the driver's attention, too. Which Alpha Safety Net's Travis Messmer tells me is thanks to LiDAR.
And shoots it out far enough ahead of time to allow cars to correct.
The train horn is 135 decibels, so they're not using it in the trade show.
I think we'd take this entire conference center if we did it in here.
Part of the challenge is avoiding the whole boy who cried wolf thing. So the detector is on a slight delay.
If you have a bird fly in front, something that's instantaneous, it's not going to set it off.
But a spotter, a worker keeping an eye out, can push the button manually, and several boxes can tie together using the old 900 megahertz cordless phone frequency. So you can put one speaker pointed close to the worker so they can hear it, and have another one pointed at the traffic so they can hear it too.
On freeways, one thing that really helps out are these continuous concrete barriers, so if somebody's not paying attention and hits the barrier, instead of going into the construction site and potentially killing somebody, they rebound off of it back into the traffic lanes where they belong.
But construction workers need to get back there, which means you have to cut an opening, which means a sharp corner.
That first piece of concrete of that barrier, and that's a rigid object, you don't want a car hitting the side of that, so they put in something called a crash cushion.
The phone, number one distraction for drivers right now. It used to be impaired drivers.
Jeff Moss re-engineered water barrels to catch a car before it hits that big piece of concrete.
You hit a product like this at 65, 70 miles an hour, you can unbelt your seatbelt, open the door, and walk away.
It takes a lot of energy to move a lot of water around, and that's sort of the idea. Now you're not going to slam into that concrete barrier at 65.
Drill into the barrier with a concrete drill,
Jeff tells me the crash cushion anchors to the barrier.
shielding the end of that concrete barrier.
Each panel weighs 160 pounds empty, a bit heavier once you load it with water.
The fill lid just rotates.
200 gallons pushes it to 2,000 pounds.
So this fill lid has a float.
To make sure there's still water in there.
If you're an inspector, you can actually stay in the safety of your car, drive by, see that that float is lifted up.
But the very first one stays dry on purpose.
Not filled. It has rivets. This one remains empty. That's important because if you're an occupant in a small vehicle, a very light vehicle, it's a very soft start deceleration, and then it ramps up in strength to slow you down.
The empty one connects to 3 water-filled segments, with couples kind of like these that have a pin go through them. But the real magic is the triangle on the front.
If we didn't have this steel frame, a module could lay down, the vehicle could override it and begin to vault or lift.
So he tells me this metal grabs the car's bumper, and the whole thing acts like a scoop sliding underneath the next plastic segment, making sure everything collapses the way it's supposed to. This can be a temporary or permanent crash cushion. Most of the permanent ones you see out on the highway are made out of metal. It looks like a driver on I-45 already used this one.
For both a car hitting it in the front or hitting on the side.
Jim Crowley works for one of the companies that manufactures crash cushions and guardrail end terminals.
There's going to be hazards on the side of the road. They have to shield those hazards.
And a guardrail does a great job catching a car before it hits a hazard. But just like concrete walls, the very end of a guardrail, it's kind of like a spear, which could be more deadly than the object the guardrail's trying to protect you from. You don't want to have a big sharp object pierce into your car if you hit it directly on. So in the old days, they used to do this. They'd twist it and push it down to the ground so there's no sharp object. Except it caused one problem. If a car drives up this, it's like a ramp and they go flying in the air and who knows where they're going to go. So instead, companies have engineered end terminals. So when a driver crashes into the end of this guardrail here, well, there's a lot of energy. It starts pushing on this whole rail. You see that bolt here? That bolt starts punching through all of these tabs. Each tab you punch a bolt through burns up quite a bit of energy. That helps slow the car down.
And there's other devices made by our competitors that do different things to the guardrail. They curl it or they flatten it a different direction. This one cuts the steel as well as deforms it in order to absorb the energy.
This double-sided crash cushion works kind of the same way.
At the beginning of the event, the slots are longer, so it's lighter weight for the light vehicles. And then as it gets towards the rear, there's a series of slots that get narrower and narrower, and so it absorbs more energy for the heavier weight vehicle, like a pickup truck.
Everything slides on this track on the bottom, each section sort of stacking on top of the next one, which is exactly what happened to our already crashed one on I-45. Looks like the kind of place cars might bonk into an attenuator like they did on the southbound side. But the northbound side is using one of these.
If a vehicle were to hit this, it's going to compress these cylinders rearward. They will slowly come back out close to its full length.
These crash cushions are great in areas that get hit a lot.
The elastomeric cylinders, high density polyethylene cylinders, and they're different wall thicknesses so that the front of the system is a little softer, and then this is a thicker wall now. Towards the rear, they're a little stiffer.
Once somebody hits a metal crash cushion, it's useless. But these still kind of work after they've been hit.
If you get a secondary impact before you have time to fix it, it still has some life-saving benefit.
But a crash cushion doesn't even need to be mounted to the ground. And once you start noticing these, you're going to see them everywhere. No company's paying for my dinner, and no sponsors buying me gas. When it comes to media, whoever's paying the bills ultimately sets the agenda. So that's why I'm happy to say this trip to Houston is made possible by you, because I'm working for you. And if you check out down there, they mount attenuators on trucks. Late night pavement work on I-69 through downtown Houston. And just in case somebody doesn't merge over, 3 trucks lined up side by side to protect that job site. This product, called the Scorpion, mounts to the back of work trucks, making them rolling attenuators or crash cushions. That protects the workers and the drivers who might crash into them. And Scorpions were mounted to pretty much everything at the ATSSA show, including this company's truck.
We hope that it never gets hit. We hope that there's never a work zone incursion, but when there is, we want this thing getting hit because that means that we're going to be saving lives.
They didn't build the Scorpion and they didn't build the truck, but Traffic Pro-Breds did build the box that goes on the back.
So it could be crashes, it could be a branch falls on the road.
This is a response truck for Virginia's 66 toll road.
It's not quite enough cones for most traffic zones, but for an incident response, it's pretty good.
Little details like letting the stack of cones swing out so you don't have to lift the whole stack.
So it's nice and ergonomic for your people as well who are actually putting out the cones.
Equipment drawers slide out to the left or the right so responders can stand on the side of the truck that's not out in traffic.
And then we just have these
rapid roll-up doors, securing all the equipment a responder would need for a stalled car, small fire, somebody driving a Mini Cooper, and help out at a car crash scene. You have a lot of broken plastic from light covers and bumper covers that are ripped off. And normally somebody would be out here with a broom trying to sweep the freeway lane clear so they can get back open to traffic. But they mounted this big snowplow blade looking thing on here, scoop all that up. That keeps people off the freeway. This second truck keeps construction workers off the freeway when they go to set out cones, which they can do from the side of the truck rather than standing behind it where they could get hit.
We put them here where they have kind of a cushion.
And a seatbelt.
When a car actually strikes the vehicle, you're going to stay with the truck. You still have some pretty good mobility so that you can deploy cones easily.
And to help you reach the cones,
Just with the click of the button, use the belt drive system and get all those cones.
Speaking of crossing a high-speed road that you really shouldn't be crossing on foot, sometimes the wall in the middle is short enough that you feel you just hop over. And that's not safe.
So this is our pedestrian barrier.
John Wathen's company sold a barrier to the state of Texas to keep people from jaywalking across a high-speed expressway.
Various DOTs do studies, and they've seen where they've applied this, the death rates have reduced. And we add some additional height to that area to reduce and discourage the crossing.
Most of the time, good engineering makes crossing the street easier. But some busy high-speed roads just aren't safe to cross mid-block.
You know, convenience stores on two different sides, it's a shorter distance.
I mean, if it was just climbing over the concrete wall, I don't want to climb over this. I'll just go cross at the crosswalk instead.
But John's company is far more than discouraging Frogger on the freeway.
You know, traditionally, a gawk screen is used in a construction zone to protect the workers from debris that's getting thrown over towards the workers.
And to help keep traffic moving so you're not slowing down to look at the construction work. He and his business partner got the idea when they saw how California uses plywood and reuses plywood, and it works, but it's pretty ugly.
This is an olefin-based product kind of in the polyethylene arena.
He says they mix in pretty much any color. Gray is good for on top of concrete, orange for construction zones, and green.
Where there's a lot of trees, that might be a good color.
Green is also a common color for blocking headlight glare. When freeway traffic really hugs that barrier, you don't want to be blinded by the light. So their glare screens compete with this product.
We want to make it last a long time.
But sometimes you don't get enough light into your car, especially when it rains.
Lines are tougher to see.
When they paint these lines on the road, the machine comes by, sprays the paint, and then it sprays down something that looks like sand, but it's really perfectly round glass beads that reflect your headlights light back to your eyes. But there's a problem. When it rains, your headlights reflect off the water instead of the glass beads, and that sort of makes that line disappear. But here in Houston, they fixed the problem. You mount one of these on the ground, so that rain problem, well, the reflector sits above the water, so it still has a chance of reflecting and going where it's supposed to go, so you can see this. But you can't do this in cold weather states because they get snow plows come through.
Roughly 40,000 people are dying on American roads every year. Half of those are nighttime lane departures.
Peter Shaw is trying to make roads in cold weather states light up, like this test they did in Colorado a few years ago.
So the industry came up with the idea, well, why don't we make a plowable raised pavement marker?
It's a 5-pound cast iron road reflector.
Unfortunately, those started to dislodge, would get hit by a plow, go through windshields.
It impaled the seat.
And they killed a number of people in multiple states.
I understand accidents happen.
Remarkably, no one was injured.
There are some wet reflective tapes that sit recessed in the roadway now. We consider those our primary competitor. The problem with the optics on the tapes is it degrades quickly.
So Peter's trying to get states to install these lightweight solar-powered LED markings that sit flush with the road.
I-70 coming down from the mountains, 50% reduction in injury accidents on the stretches of road that they put them on.
He tells me Colorado DOT left the westbound lanes unchanged.
So we had a really nice controlled validation that the markers worked. The problem was they were failing quickly. So they were getting water inside them. Post-deterioration phase, injury accidents increased again.
So that's where Peter came in, hoping to design a second generation.
The critical thing was to get it in a form factor that could fit shallow enough for the grooving to take place.
Road crews would use a grinder to cut this semicircle gouge into the pavement.
It's called a modified banana cut. And that means we taper down to a 1/4 inch. That removes the asphalt and allows the LED light to be seen at distance at a very low angle. Put the epoxy in place. Someone comes in and drops the marker in, pushes it in place, and we're good to go.
LEDs facing traffic would be white or yellow, depending on the line color. The reverse side would be red to tip off a driver they're going the wrong way. He says the latest breakthrough has been trying to help figure out a way road crews can install these quickly because
they used a core drill. It was a round device, 15 minutes to core drill it. They had to clean everything out. Once they got it all set, the low man on the totem pole had to come behind them with a hand grinder and grind the lip of the asphalt so that the LED could be seen out at distance. And nobody wanted to do that job. So the installers were never going to work with that at the end of the day. So that was probably the most critical thing that we solved, was the installation time.
And also knowing even a well-installed unit's going to eventually break loose.
If it explodes into a number of pieces, no one piece is going to be heavy enough to create that problem that cast iron 5.5-pound ring had.
To be honest, when I first came out to the conference, I thought, 3 days and it's just a bunch of vendors. I'm going to run out of things to do. But out of the 260 vendors there, I'm only showing you these half dozen or so products because that's all I had time for. Now, thankfully, ATSSA's conference is every year. They'll be in Long Beach next year, which is my neck of the woods. So hopefully I'll be back to show you even more inventions to try to make roads crash more safely and keep people alive, or even better, prevent people from crashing in the first place. I'll see you next time.
You say, yeah, but a guardrail, that's not new. Well, it's constantly updating. Electric cars have all those batteries low to the ground. You don't want those sliding underneath the guardrail, so there may be more changes on the horizon. And I'm so happy to be working for you. Unlike those new car launch videos where the automaker pays for the trip. That's going to be unbiased.